First story. The saga of OP, who spent years finding his sister to reconnect after their narcissistic mom cheated on his father, stripping him of all his money, and abandoning them, only to find out his sister is beyond their mom and only met them to exploit their money. My parents got divorced in August of 2014. It was a messy, effing divorce. One of the worst I've ever known. And I know quite a few of my friends' parents. My mother took half of my dad's savings, half of his pension. He had just retired after 11 years in the army and 25 years in the police. She was cheating on medical benefits during this time. Half of the house, the mortgage on which she never contributed. And even tried to get half of the compensation my dad was awarded after being hit by a car. ICU medically induced coma plus in various hospitals and rehab centers from November 2015 to January 2016. Yes, the divorce took almost 2 years. Long story short, she bankrupted my dad. We were on the verge of homelessness for a while. He spiraled into depression, which dragged me into depression. Things were effing bad for us. She also tried to use me and my sister as weapons against him. She moved to Surrey, a place near London 200 miles from where we were living at the time, to be with the man she was cheating on my dad with. My sister, who was 14 at the time, went with her. My mom tried to make me come too. I wasn't NC at this point, but I had just started a software development apprenticeship at the time, so I stayed with my father. Things were okay. I even went down to Surrey to see them. It was when I was down there that I overheard my stepfather chatting SHT about my dad, a man he had never met. Calling him worthless, good for nothing, and not a real man was thrown in there a couple times. She laughed along the way. Obviously, I was upset. When I got back home, I texted her to let her know that I knew what he had been saying. This led to a barrage from her side, telling me never to talk or attempt to contact her, my stepfather, and this is the only thing that killed me, my sister. I happily obliged with the first two. I carried on talking to my sister through Facebook, saying things like, "I will never not love you. You'll always be my sister." She said similar things back and said she missed me. I went to message her one day, and she'd blocked me. I got a text from her saying that the way I spoke to my mom and stepfather was disgusting, and that they have been nothing but amazing to me and her. When I first read it, I thought it was weird. When my dad got the exact same text word for word, despite not saying anything to either of them, I knew it was my mother pretending to be my sister. I texted her back something along the lines of, "Your bullshit has always been easy to see through, Mom's name." I didn't get any messages back. Now's not the time to go into it. But after many drunken conversations with my dad, I found out my mom was always emotionally abusive and a total narcissist. When she found out I tried to kill myself, she mentioned in a letter to another family member that I should have tried harder. I never want anything to do with her again. The issue at hand. As mentioned above, my father was bankrupt. He had no money left to fight for custody of my sister. I know he'd do anything to see her again. Going through courts is no longer an option. We don't know where they live, and we don't have the money. We don't even know if any of them are still alive. Until yesterday. My girlfriend and I were scouring the web for any online presence of any of them when she found a Facebook profile for my sister that was created around 2 weeks ago. It only has one profile picture, and the privacy settings are pretty much at their maximum. You can only message it. She sent me the link to it, and I'm blocked. However, given what happened with the text message a few years ago, I'm inclined to believe that's in part due to my mother. Maybe I'm being stupidly naive, and my sister really doesn't want anything to do with me. So here's my dilemma. Not only has my sister been cut off from me, she's been cut off from her entire family. All her aunts, uncles, and grandparents are not allowed to contact her, lest they corrupt her mother's words into seeing me and my dad again. I can message my sister if I create a new Facebook account, even if it's just to let her know that whatever she's been fed about mine and my father's feelings about her are lies, we still love her. Even if it's just to let her know that her nan thinks about her every day, she could die happy after just one phone call from her. The issue is that I don't want her mother to intercept the message and make things worse for her or us. I'm sure her account is heavily monitored. I might sound crazy to a lot of people, and I know there's two sides to every story, including this one. But I promise you, in my own life, that living under my mother is like living under a dictatorship. Your thoughts aren't your own. It's horrible. She will start university in September, I assume. I'm thinking the best way to do this is to message the account around October. The thing is, I don't know if I'm emotionally ready to be told to go F myself by her. My dad's therapist has said there's a very real possibility my sister grows to become like my mother. Part of me is ready to accept that fact as closure. Part of me wants to believe that would never happen. and part of me thinks I should just leave it alone. I'm really at a loss for what to do. For 4 years, I've been looking for her. Now that I've finally found her, or at least an online presence of hers, I really don't want to F anything up. What's the best way to go from here? TLDR. Sister has been involuntarily out of contact with me since my parents' divorce. She lives with my narcissistic mother, who would do anything to make sure I never see her again. I've found a way to contact her, and I want to do it. But I don't want to step into her life and screw it up for her. What's the best way to proceed? Updates. This is an update to this post I made in January last year. Not many people saw it, but I figured I'd update anyway because I got some good advice, and, I don't know, the outcome might be something good to read while having a poo or whatever. Fair warning. This is a lot longer than I expected it to be. TLDR for the original. My sister has been involuntarily out of contact with me since my parents' divorce. She lives with my narcissistic mother, who would do anything to make sure I never see her again. I've found a way to contact her, and I want to do it. But I don't want to step into her life and screw it up for her. What's the best way to proceed? Update. Well, I'm 23 now. I finished university, started a real job, and my dad and I no longer have depression. Life is pretty good. As for my sister, a few interesting things happened, to say the least. Firstly, I took the overall consensus from the original post and didn't make any attempt to contact her. I did drunkenly check her page from time to time to see if anything had changed, and I found that I'd be unblocked on my main Facebook account, probably around August of that same year. My sister called my aunt and said she wanted to arrange a meeting with her and her son, our cousin, obviously. My aunt immediately called my dad and me and told us the good news. We were both uncertain about how we should take it, but overall, we were pretty happy. They all meet up, and apparently my sister has also been kicked out of our mother's house for some reason or another and is staying with a friend, and she hasn't spoken to my mother for over a year at this point in November. The story goes that my mother and her new victim managed to ostracize themselves from all their friends down there, and my mother took out her aggression on my sister. So she stormed out and turned teary-eyed at this friend's house and has been living with them ever since. She asked about me and my father, if we were doing well, and if we hate her. Obviously, my aunt assured her that we definitely don't. My sister says that she wants to get in contact with both of us, but she wants to take it slow, and she doesn't know how we will react. In my view, that's completely understandable. That's interesting. Point 1. Just as a side note, my mother once smacked my sister in the face for wasting a tampon when she was 12. I obviously am not completely familiar with that uniquely female experience, but I did get the joy of hearing that moment unfold just for an idea of the type of person my mother is and what she did to us both as kids. Interesting. Point 2. It happens when my sister, with her new boyfriend, goes up to visit our nan. Another cousin of ours, the big family, is also present for this meeting. My cousin tells me that my sister told our nan that it had been a few months since she had last spoken to our mother, which is quite a bit different from over a year ago. Whatever, maybe my aunt misremembered the meeting. However, my cousin did say that she got a very off vibe from my sister, and to paraphrase her own words heavily, you would think sister had last seen us all last weekend, not 5 years ago. She walked into Nan's house like she owned the effing place. She didn't really say why she was getting in contact with us, and not you or her father, other than she wasn't ready. And she didn't really say why she hadn't spoken to her mother either. I don't know. I wasn't happy with it at all. And we were all thinking that you two, my father, and I should be in that room, not us. But maybe your mother has made me too paranoid. My nan is my maternal grandparent. I call her as often as I can, which isn't as often as I would like it to be, and I know I'll kick myself for it. I digress. Every time I call her, she always asks about my dad and his new partner and sends them birthday cards, Christmas cards, and so on. To me, it just speaks volumes about the type of person my mother is when her mother is more concerned about the well-being of her ex-husband and his new partner. Just try to get this point home to any doubters. 3 occurs when I find out that my sister asked my nan for some money to help her out with university and is not living with her mother anymore. My nan, being the lovely little 86-year-old Welsh sweetheart that she is, gave her around £2,000. Now, I'm happy to be proven wrong here, but asking for £2,000 within a few hours of reconnecting with family that you haven't seen or made contact with for 5 years is very strange. I found out about this because, around November, my nan called me because she had promised me an update on the situation, to tell me that for about a week after my sister met up with them all, they had been in regular contact via phone and Facebook. Since that week, nothing. Unreturned voicemails and Facebook messages left unread. My sister had taken the money and effed off. I spent the day reassuring my nan that she hadn't done anything wrong, and she definitely wasn't the idiot she thought she was for giving my sister the money. 4 is the least interesting, but you'll be pleased to know that my ramblings end here, at least. It should go without saying that since the first meeting in August with my aunt and her son, neither my dad nor I have had any direct contact with my sister. On Boxing Day, my sister finally calls my nan and wishes her a Merry Christmas. My nan says thanks and hangs up. In January, on my nan's 87th birthday, my sister calls up and wishes her a happy birthday, and she also mentions that she's having some money problems. My nan rolls her eyes and hands the phone to my aunt, who buys my sister's sob story hook, line, and sinker and rings me to tell me that, quote-unquote, good news, and that it's different this time. She really wants to see you. Around May, which is my birthday month, BTW, my sisters send a text to my aunt to see if she has any old pictures of her. My aunt says she doesn't, but that me and my dad might, which we do. My sister sends a text back saying that she will get in touch with us. I know this is going to come as a complete shock, but it's been radio silence since, and in all honesty, I'm fine with that. To me, it's crystal clear who my sister has grown up to be like. Toying with family members' emotions, treating her own presence as a gift, and using it to manipulate money out of people, telling inconsistent stories about her relationship with the one person she knows would be a deal breaker if the rest of the family knew was still involved, and being terrible at hiding her true intentions. Will she ask me for the photos? Probably not. Unless she gets really desperate and exhausts all other avenues for exploiting money out of people with pity stories. Even she knows that I know exactly who that money is going to. My mother knows that she's not in my nan's will at this point. If she does want to meet up, I will bring the photos with me. Part of me wants to bring 2 envelopes, half of the photos in one envelope, the other half shredded up in another, and depending on how well the meeting goes, it depends on which envelope she gets. I won't do that, but the thought of being that petty is very tempting. I'm not holding my breath. She was 14 and I was 17 the last time I saw her. She's turning 21 this year, and I was 23 in May. I've had my years of anger and grief and done my time with depression. I've hurt many people and many relationships along the way. I'm still learning what's normal and what isn't. But on the whole, my life is split up into before and after. And for the most part, my sister lives and will remain in the before. Somewhat because I want to maintain the memory I have of her and not taint it by knowing what she has become. And somewhat because I'm not ready to go through what I overcame again. I've accepted my role in the universe as the recipient of bad karma to make up for all the good karma that randomly happens to other people. I'm okay with that. For the first time in my life, I've been the one in control. As for my attitude toward her and my mother, the best word I could adequately use to describe it is ambivalent. They could win the lottery and be on the news tomorrow, or they could get hit by a bus. My reaction would probably be the same. To everyone else out there with estranged parents or other family members, the one thing I learned is that estrangement is the best thing they'll ever do for you. I didn't contact her, and it turned out to be a good thing, but not for the reasons I thought. Edit. Thank you all for your comments. I did my best to reply to everybody, but given the response to the original post, I had no idea this would get so much attention. To the people who shared their similar stories, I hope you're all keeping well, staying positive, and making the most of what you've been dealt in life. Hard times make strong people. In reference to my idea of ripping up the photos, that was always only half serious. I wouldn't do something like that. It's petty, wouldn't be fair to my sister, and would only give me short-term satisfaction in the form of a pathetic one-up. I realized that before writing this post. In reference to the bad karma line, I actually think I'm a very lucky man, all things considered. I'm where I want to be in life. I have a fun, happy, and stable family around me, and I'm confident in the person I've become. That line is a glimpse into my personality. Some people got that, and some people were genuinely concerned for me, which I do sincerely appreciate. The black dog never really stops chasing you. But I get a much warmer feeling from being able to laugh at a universe that is seemingly constantly shitting on you than I do from pretending that everything is okay. That's what I meant by that line. Thanks again to everyone for taking the time to read. It felt good to get this off my chest and know that a lot of people think I'm making the right moves. A good number of people made the fair comment that my sister is still young and possibly under my mother's influence. I appreciate those people taking the time to give feedback and advice, but ultimately, my life has already moved on. I made peace with the fact that I may never see my sister again long before the events I've detailed out here. And when this all kicked off, The closure and acceptance I had moved on from began to unravel. I'm not ready to go back into dark days off of the risk that everything might be okay. Yes, in the future we may reconnect. But for now, I am focused on my own life, and am content with taking some of the rare happy memories I had of my family and my childhood with me, untouched by these developments. Second story. Entitled Stepdaughter Demands OP Remove Her Harry Potter-Themed Bookshelf, which her late grandfather made, because it's provoking an anti-trans agenda. So OP told her that she is always welcome to go to her mom. I'm having a bit of family drama and need a reality check to see if I am being unreasonable here. I really need the perspective of LGBT+ sensitive individuals, because the drama surrounds transphobia perpetrated by J.K. Rowling. My stepdaughter is going through a pretty tough time. The last couple years have been really rough on her. She has been dealing with bullying at school, being held back a year, not getting along with her mom's new husband, self-harm, and identity issues. Lots of questioning of her sexuality and gender. We have been working on getting her a good mental health team of doctors and therapists to help her navigate all of this. Please know we aren't throwing her to the wolves or the internet to deal with it all herself. I've been in her life since she was 7. We've always had a pretty good, though not terribly close, relationship. I have not taken on a parental role, but I have always tried to make myself available for her. Until last year, her mom had primary custody, and her dad had weekends with alternating holidays. Last year, due to the issues with her school and mom's house, my stepdaughter requested that custody arrangements be changed. Since she came to live with my husband and me full-time, there has been quite a bit of friction between the two of us. One of the biggest points of contention is my Harry Potter fandom, particularly the bookcase, and my supposed transphobia due to my apparently wrong stance when it comes to the politics regarding trans issues in our country. I grew up in the 1950s. So many of my childhood and teen memories are tied to the franchise. My friends and I were all really into it. We attended midnight book releases, dressed up in costumes for movie releases, threw HP-themed parties when we wanted to hang out, etc. In many ways, it shaped the course of my entire life. Those same friends and I joined our high school's botany club because of herbology. That unlocked a lifelong passion of mine, and my career is working with plants. Over the years, I've collected quite a bit of memorabilia, many of which are gifts, and they have always been displayed on my most prized possession. A monstrously large custom bookcase my grandfather, a former woodworker, built for me when I was a teenager. I love this thing. The shelves are live-edge black walnut slabs. All around the casing, my grandpa carved beautiful HP-themed imagery. Owls, cauldrons, shooting stars, lightning bolts, an adorable little rat at the bottom, nibble marks from said rat, etc. It's both sentimental and valuable. The slabs of walnut for the shelves alone would be pushing $1,000, let alone attempting to value the hand-carved craftsmanship. The bookcase has always been proudly displayed in my home. It currently lives in our living room. During one of our family therapy sessions, my stepdaughter expressed that seeing my HP shelf made her feel really uncomfortable because of the author, and that she was really disappointed in me and her father for being so supportive of a bigot. I apologized for making her feel uncomfortable in her own home and said that I would take down the HP stuff. So I packed up all the HP-themed merchandise off the shelves. I made sure I didn't have the books or anything on display that said Harry Potter anywhere. I bought some LED grow lights and converted the bookcase into a plant shelf to display succulents. I bought some witchy, but not overtly Harry Potter themed, pots for the little guys so they'd go with the shelf. This was not an acceptable compromise for my stepdaughter, and has remained a point of contention. With my stepdaughter hurling that ew referring to my husband broke a promise by saying we would get rid of the Harry Potter stuff. I tried to explain to my stepdaughter that, while I do not agree with J.K. Rowling's political stance at all, the media has a special place in my heart because of my childhood association with it, and that the shelf was very important to me because it was a gift from my grandpa. But she maintains that none of that should matter because in 2024 it is nothing but a symbol of transphobia and hate. At first, my husband was supportive of me and my desire to keep my bookcase, but lately the arguments are wearing on him, and he asked me if I would reconsider keeping it in the living room, suggesting we rent a storage unit to house it in. After the most recent blow-up about it, I kind of lost my temper. I didn't yell or anything, but I did very firmly tell my stepdaughter that this is my home and my bookshelf stays. If it is such a big problem for her, she can always go back to live with her mother. I knew it was a low blow pretty much as soon as I said it. I quickly apologized, but it was out there. My stepdaughter has been on an emotional downward spiral. My husband and I have been arguing almost nonstop. I think it is mostly stress because he is at his wit's end about how to help his daughter. But he is becoming pretty mean and nasty towards me, telling me to grow up and just get rid of the effing bookcase. I know I was a DCK for saying my stepdaughter could always go back to live with her mom, and I suspect that will be the main topic at hand in our next family therapy session. But am I really being unreasonable in wanting to keep my beloved bookcase? Edit. Thank you, everyone. Honestly. Thank you to those who shared their insight and advice. And thank you to the people who have asked me hard questions that made me think. Especially those who asked, what matters more, a bookcase or my child? I've been reflecting really hard on what my bookcase means to me and why it is so important. I'm hitting on some deep truths I don't think I was ready to recognize about how I really feel about my relationship with my stepdaughter. All in all, I think we just need to shelf things until our next therapy session. I'll see myself out. Comments. Mollises 53. Telling me to grow up and just get rid of the effing bookcase. Telling you to get rid of something your grandfather lovingly created for you because his daughter is having a teenage strop about it. F no. Is there room in your bedroom for the bookcase? Mention interesting 58. That may be the best choice. Zugma 888. Or in OP's new place. If my books and bookshelves aren't welcome, it's not a home for me. And none of my bookshelves were lovingly hand-carved by a now-deceased relative. Teenagers are prone to being extreme and overreacting. She will eventually grow up and realize how ridiculous and unfair she is being. Deleted. Not to sound like a boomer, but this has to be some sort of generational thing, right? When we were kids, if one of my friends or I demanded that our parents remove a piece of furniture from their homes, they would simply laugh in our faces. Revolutionary Yak 47. Seriously. Zenial here. My mother would have ignored me the first time and told me to get over it the second time I asked. Dad would have listened to me, then told me that when I paid for the house, I could get what I wanted. Fitz-Design. So while your comments were harsh, they were understandable. We went through something similar when one of our kids thought she might be trans, and it was a very challenging few years until she re-identified as cis. We tried to be as supportive as you have been, but every little mistake we made was leapt upon by her and her sisters as being unsupportive. We walked on eggshells for several years, not trying to offend anyone. At the end, we had to say, we're sorry, and we fully support you, but you need to learn to manage yourself. Not everyone in the world is going to bow down to you to ensure your comfort. We fully support you and have gotten you the psychiatrist and medical support that you need. However, you have hammered us at every tiny mistake, and enough is enough. We are your parents. We support you, but we are not your punching bags. The point was made, and life calmed down. I see some parallels here with your bookcase. It is a part of you, and she needs to see that you support her and that she is loved. But at the same time, you are not there for her to constantly beat on. Not everything you do is going to be perfect, and she needs to understand and accept that just as you are accepting her. Your husband needs to be on board with this, and if he is sabotaging you, then your efforts are doomed. If he can't support you, then you may need to think about whether or not your relationship is viable long-term. Good luck, OP. OP, thank you so much for sharing your experience. It is very similar to what we are going through. This was very validating. My stepdaughter has definitely been trying on different identities and gets very upset when we slip up, make a mistake, and use the wrong pronoun. It isn't intentional. Over the last 3 years, she has been identified as male, female, non-binary, fluid, and other. Fluid was the toughest, as she expected us to use different names and pronouns based on how she was presenting that particular day. The problem is that she most often wears gender-neutral attire. Sorry, stepdaughter, for all the times I got it wrong when you were wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. Judgment. NTA. Update. 2 months later. Someone asked if I could update this situation, and I'll try my best to summarize the past several weeks. My husband and I spoke about the situation. He apologized for being snappish with me and agreed that SD was being unreasonable about the bookcase. He ultimately agreed to tell me about it. He and I are just as tight as we ever have been. I once again apologized to my SD for the remark I made out of frustration about her moving back with her mom. I reiterated that our home is her home too, and she is always welcome here. Even though families sometimes fight and disagree, we are family. But the general argument about HP, J.K. Rowling, and my bookcase continued to escalate for a couple weeks. And then the discontent about that started to bleed over into complaints about me. She started to be more disrespectful and sarcastic. During all of this, we were still attending our family therapy sessions. Our therapist was pretty certain that the misbehavior was anxiety-related, and didn't suggest that we give in to the demands to have the bookcase removed. She wanted to just keep working on the things we all have been doing. Well, SD's disrespectful attitude hit a climax. She called me the C word and some other choice things within my husband's earshot. My husband honestly kind of lost it on her. I don't think I have ever seen him that angry before. He was bright red, and his veins were popping as he marched her to her room and declared, "You will not speak to my wife in such a way." This was probably the first time my SD had ever seen her dad angry, let alone anger directed at her. It left her pretty shaken, like that was her rock bottom. We ended up needing to do a couple emergency sessions with her counselor, because there was concern about her relapsing with some self-destructive issues she has been working on. But that incident led to us having a breakthrough. Her counselor invited my husband and me into one of her sessions, and she had a bit of a breakdown. Basically, she was dealing with a lot of existential dread and a lot of fear due to politics and the fact that it was an election year. That ended up being an excellent opening for us to bond. This is going to sound silly, but I was able to pull up my social media timelines from 2016, and I showed her some of the things I had written or shared with her back then. She was able to see that I shared a lot of the same fears that she has. So we have all had some really big talks about things like feeling helpless when things are out of your control, about disengaging from the media machine for your own mental health, etc. Things have been on the upswing since then. Before she left for her mom's this past weekend, she even gave me a Mother's Day gift. An adorable little planter that says caution, mandrakes. I love it. I put one of my favorite props in it, and it is front and center on the bookcase now. Comments. F y'all creeps. Yes, yes, yes. I love when communication actually comes to the rescue. Although I hate that sometimes it has to be about our common plague of existential dread. Great job, everyone. Fragrant Reserve 4832. It wasn't communication that came to the rescue. It was an old-fashioned bollocking by Dad. Bex Folly. Well, that was an unexpected type of communication, wasn't it? It woke her the hell up, as it had never happened before, since she'd not stooped so low before while taking out her anxiety on her stepmother. So she was extra receptive to the subsequent communications at the therapist sessions. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.